بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم لا إله إلا الله. Jazakumullah khair for joining us today. The subject, as you know, is engaging with non-Muslims in non-Muslim countries. Understanding the context is always the most important. We must realize and appreciate we do live in Darul Kufr. We don't live in Darul Iman or Islam. We are in a non-Muslim country which is guided, regulated by Kufr. And we must appreciate this instead of hallucinating about the idea that they have Muslim values and Muslim ideas and so on. It doesn't matter what their values and ideas are. The overarching system of thought, philosophy, culture, government, and everything else is all kufr. Everything here is kufr based. It is non-Muslim. Some issues may be not as un-Islamic, and some issues may be very close to Islamic. But the overall impetus you have is all kufr. So I don't think we should be assuming that we are in Darul Islam and we have the luxury of praying 5 times a day and doing Jum'ah and doing Eid and doing Qurbani and having fancy, mashallah, nikah parties and all of that. That doesn't make it Darul Islam. The psyche of everybody you engage with is all a psyche of kufr. Now, am I using the word kufr in a derogative way? No. It's a very factual way. It's what the reality is, right? And until we come to terms with this reality, I don't think there's a path we can forge and create into how to engage in this community and in this society. And that's the first thing, that it is a non-Muslim environment, it's a non-Muslim abode, and that is the truth of the matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, informs us of how to live and what our guidance is. And we always make the dua every time we do salat, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us onto the right path. So this is a dua we make, and the reason we make the dua because we need guidance in everything we do. So that's the second part, that we are in constant need of divine guidance as to make sure we're not following the wrong path. There's a sirat al-mustaqim, which is the right path, and there's a sirat other than the mustaqim, which is the wrong and the erroneous kind of path, and we must ascertain as part of our iman and hidayah which one is the right way and which one is the wrong way. There can only be one of two. There's no middle ground. There's no what you call gray area, no man's land. It's either right or it's either wrong. Even though some areas may be gray in terms of the conceptualization, but it doesn't matter. You still have to pick one, and so on. That's the second thing. The third is engagement itself. What is engagement? What do we mean by engaging? So by default, we're already engaging very organically, subconsciously. Whatever we do in this country is engaging with the non-Muslim. You go to the bank, you're engaging. You go to Jewel, you're engaging. You fill up your gas at the station, you're engaging. Whatever we do is with the non-Muslim and with the non-Muslim system. We're always engaging. So we can't say we're not engaging, because that will be holier than thou approach. Oh, I don't want to engage with non-Muslims. Doesn't matter what you say. So you have a social security number, you're engaging with kufr. Right? That's the truth of the matter, right? You live here, you breathe the air here, you drink the water here, you're engaging. The food you eat is from here. So that's all engaging. So we do engage normally in a very kind of, what's it called? Um, um, it's kind of seamless way, which is fine. It's normal life. As I said, you do things with other people, you are actually engaged. Now, the question is there something else we should be doing other than organic engagement or voluntary engagement? These are involuntary. Is there a voluntary process whereby we can say we are engaging with the niyyah to engage and the niyyah to, draw attention to us as Muslims? That's the key. That do we engage in a way to show people we are Muslim? Do we inform people that the reason we're engaging with you at this moment is because we're Muslim, and so on. Otherwise, there are, areas where there's nothing we can do except to engage, inshallah. If you all pay taxes, your taxes go to Israel. That's engagement. You can't escape that. How are you going to do that? I don't want my taxes going to Israel, okay? Who's going to tell the government that? You understand what I'm saying, that the plight and the enormity of this statement that we don't engage with a non-Muslim. The truth is, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. The system will force you to engage with their agenda, with its agenda. Okay? There's no two ways about it. The thing is, can we stop that? Can we curb that? Can we curtail that? Can we restrict that? And can we do something in the opposite direction where we say we're not engaging here anymore? Meaning, what is tantamount to itham and sin when we do engage voluntarily with certain ideals and certain processes and so on? We go to school here, we're engaging. Okay, you take out a loan for your education or whatever it is you take the loan out for, you're engaging. You go to college here, you're engaging. You go to work here in a non-Muslim company, there you're engaging. So the levels of engagement, they're obviously, they are categorized. You'll have a paper on the website which you must access. It's a very well written document on 7 layers of engagement. You guys should read it. Definitely, there's very, very well done, mashallah. It's on the website and there's a QR code there. You can download it. You can look at, and as I said, it's a good, what you call it, understanding of how we should engage at maybe different levels. And I'll explain 1 or 2 levels that he's mentioned in the paper, but on the whole, we don't need all that. There's one ayah in the Quran, which I don't know if you can see it. Is the ayah there? If you go to our website or our slide, there's one ayah as in Surah Mumtahina. And that ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم. That there is no harm that if you engage and treat people with kindness, those who have not driven you away from your homeland and those who don't fight you, you should engage with kindness with them. That's what the ayah says, Surah Mumtahina, ayah number 6, I believe it is. La yanhaakum Allah. Allah does not prevent you from an tabarruhum, being kind and generous to those who don't fight you and those who don't expel you from your homes, which would be here. No one's, mashallah, alhamdulillah, so far, driving us away from our homes. Allah keep it that way. Yeah. And no one's fighting us because we're Muslim. Obviously, there's a bit of Islamophobia, xenophobia, but that comes with just being Muslim. There's nothing you can do about it. There's something we can do, but I mean, it's not going to change anything. But as a system, the U.S. government allows us to live here, to be Muslims freely and to do whatever we do. The system doesn't discriminate based on religion. Hopefully it will stay that way, inshallah. Meaning the Quran says we should be kind and generous to them as a point of appreciating, their security, that they've given us a sense of security. Now, the approach we have is not one of a reactionary one, or maybe, there is some reciprocation, no doubt, that we should reciprocate their honor and their giving us security. There's no doubt in that. But I don't think we should become second-class citizens and assume we are guests in this country. That is a wrong attitude. That's a very passive, defeatist approach. That some people, some Muslim leaders, they also say, Muslims in these countries, they're guests. And we should treat our guests well and honor our guests, as the Quran and the Hadith says. We should honor our guests. Get the heck out of here. We're citizens. We're not guests. We are full-fledged US citizens, which means we are part of society. Don't ever assume you're guests, because that's being defeatist. You're compromising yourself. Meaning, most of you who were born here, you could become the president. Then why are you a guest? Why are you selling yourself short? And so we're guests in this country. You're not guest. You are an active member of society. You could become the president legally. And you must participate as a bona fide US citizen of this country. This country is your country. You're not guests. Okay, so take away that attitude that somehow we have to treat our hosts properly. No, we treat our hosts as, they're equal citizens. That's the name of your, your idea of citizenship. That whole debate that they started of nation states, and every citizen of a nation state has equal rights and so on. So we use that to our advantage. We're not going to be second class and second-rate citizens just because you have an idea that we are guests in this country. We're not guests. If we are guests, then we will be paying taxes. Right? We pay all the damn taxes. And more than that. Yeah. Even if you have a green card, you pay taxes. Doesn't matter if you're not a citizen. They make sure that you're part of the system. So our attitude must be positive, that we belong here. If you feel psychologically, mentally, you belong somewhere else, then you should be in that place. Instead of doing some mental splits, I belong there, I belong here. Make up your mind. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to belong? Which country are you a citizen of? You can have dual citizenship, which is fine. I guess that's legal. But in terms of being a participant in the community you decide to live in, you cannot be wishy-washy. And from that premise, then we should do everything that a normal US citizen does in terms of living, in terms of behaving, without compromising our ethics and morals, and without compromising our deen and our aqidah, without compromising our Islam. We should feel and believe that we belong here. So if there's now something wrong in the mainstream community, we should feel responsible. We have to do something about it. So if there's now, violence on the south side, we should feel it. That we have a responsibility to do something about the violence there in Chicago. This is our country. And it's our neighborhood. It's our people. If there's something wrong, with something in the economy, we should feel that we have to do something about it, because it is our country. And we do have a voice. It's not that we don't have a voice. We do. We should use that voice. As not Muslims who are disengaged and Muslims who are isolated, or somehow Muslims are, exonerated from doing what's right. The Quran doesn't say that. The Quran says exactly the opposite. What does the Quran say? كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best of communities, raised for the whole of mankind, not just for the Muslims. It's not just about making sure you have zabiha meat. It's about making sure there's peace and security in the neighborhood you live in. You have to make sure there are no drugs. You have to make sure that there's now, what do you call it, security in the neighborhood you live in. Make sure there's no violence. Make sure there's no robbery. Make sure that you understand your role is ta'muruna bil ma'ruf, that you enjoin the good. You enjoin what is known to be good. From the word ma'ruf, arafat, to know, to be known. So in the community, there's a social norm of goodness which is known to every citizen. Every person in the country will know this is good. So Muslims, per the Quran, are obligated to enjoin that which is a known good, which is universal. And we're supposed to enjoin that. We're supposed to command that. We're supposed to tell people this is a known good. This is a value that is common to me and you. Hygiene is a common value. Honesty is a common value. Integrity is a common value. Hard work is a common value. We should promote these values as an ummah, as people who are responsible for maintaining good in the community. And that is how you encourage. We do this in our conversation, I think, anyway. If you're talking to somebody at work and you have a common conversation and you're enjoying the good and say, this is good, this is good, this is good, mashallah. But there are levels of good. One good is a common good, what's known commonly by everybody. Another good is a high level of good. That will be Islam. That will be Islam, right? It's a good, right? Islam is a good, I hope, right? It is ma'ruf, it's known to be good. We don't promote it as a good. Some of us do. Most of us are kind of shy away. So maybe Islam is not so good. Maybe I shouldn't talk about Islam. It's not good enough for these people. That's where the problem is. That we shy away from promoting what is good. Islam is the best. It's not just good. It is the best thing for mankind. As we know, best thing for salvation and so on. So there I think we should be a bit more aggressive, a bit more forthright, a bit more honest with ourselves and say that. I don't mean you have a chip on your shoulder and you carry a Quran with you everywhere you go. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if there's an opportunity for you to talk about Islam, then do so without apologizing that, oh, you're Muslim. Oh, by the way, I also believe in Jesus. What the heck is that? You also believe in Jesus? Well, thank you very much. You believe in Jesus? No. Tell them we believe in Jesus the way the Quran wants us to believe in Jesus. We don't believe in Jesus the way you do. You have to say that, so that there's a separation between you and them. Well, but this is a common known factor that Jesus is in their religion, Jesus is in our religion. No, Jesus is not in their religion. They have a false Jesus that they believe in, which is not good. It is munkar. It is denied by the Quran and Hadith. It's not known. It's unknown. So that's why I think that we have to come out of our shells and come out of our closets and start, exposing Islam the way Islam is, not the way Islam we want it to appear, which is a common mistake, unfortunately. So there, we do have some work we need to do on ourselves. We need some reinforcements. Obviously, we need reassurances, and we need a support group, obviously. And you can do that. You can come and talk to the ulama, come and talk to people who are aggressive and who do want the right Islam to be exposed, and so on. So that level of exposure for Muslims to engage in is necessary. as a community. Some people must be doing this all the time as a fard kifaya. Somebody in the community must be doing this level of, enjoying in the good that Islam is. So this is now a civic duty of all Muslims. Muslims, wherever they went in different countries of the world before the nation states came, we were all very eager and willing to say and express who we are and what our values are. We were never shy to hold back. And so there have been many places in the world where Muslims express their business values, and they implemented Muslim business practices in the market. And through those business practices, people became Muslim because of those values, because of the way they engaged with business, and because they weren't cheats and they weren't liars and they had honesty and they had integrity. So people just say, you guys must be onto something very special. What is that something? So this is Islam. So okay, then give us Islam also. So a whole group of people, thousands of them, became Muslim because Muslims exposed their business values honestly. It wasn't because they were preaching. This is who we are. This is the way we do business. So when people see the what I call the ihsan of Islam, they will turn to you and they will see what you are made of and so on. So in your conversations, express the ihsan, the beauty and the glory of Islam, Islamic values. And more than that, I always say, put a face onto Islam. Unfortunately, we don't put a face onto Islam. We talk about Islam in the abstract. Islam is love. Islam has this system, and we have this way and this way. Islam believes in democracy and all of that nonsense. But you have to put the face of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam onto Islam. Yeah. Express your love for your leader, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and say, we follow this man. And that is what makes us Muslim. And express his ihsan to the world, his beauty to the world. Talk about him, describe him, honor him by saying that this is the reason why we are Muslim. We are Muslim not because of our values that are somewhere in a closet, but because we're following this man and this person. And this man, this person is real. He is in flesh and blood. When you go to Christians, they don't necessarily come and tell you about their Christian values. They say, Jesus is the Savior. That's what they say, right? Why do they put a face on their religion? And how come we never put a face on our religion? We shy away from it. Somehow we think that, God forbid, the Prophet is a second-class citizen. He doesn't need to be exposed. No. Muhammad Rasulullah is part of our kalima. He is our Rasul. He is the one we follow. He is the reason why we're Muslim. So we must do that also. That's how you engage in conversations with people. Make sure the premise is right. Once the premise is right, then you're okay, inshallah. Are there other areas that we can talk about, how to engage in public schools and how to engage in, gatherings where the so-called interfaith gatherings, and how to engage maybe at a different level, namely politics. Politics definitely is a very hotly debated area. Should we engage, at which level, and so on. So there is a sense of saying that if you want to promote well-being and ma'ruf in the community, then obviously we do have a stake in politics, and who does become a congressman, who does become a representative, and who does become a senator, and who does become a president. As American citizens, we have a role to play there also. We can't just back off and say, no, there's no role for us to play. Some people say it's haram to engage, and some people say it's wajib and fard. Whatever they say, you need proof. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say it's haram or forbidden or it is not necessary or wajib. You need proof and evidence for that level of sin or reward. If you say it's wajib, then you must say that there is immense reward in what you do, for which you need proof. Where's the proof? Islam is evidence-based, right? There has to be Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, where it explicitly says that if you engage this way, you will be rewarded immensely. And likewise on the other side, if you say it's sinful, then where's the proof? Is there an ayah of the Quran, is there hadith, is there any understanding from the ulama which even remotely suggests if you don't engage, or if you do engage, there's a sin? So I'll be very wary of people making claims about Islamic, that people get onto the podium on Friday on the mimbar after their khutbah or during their khutbah saying it's wajib for us. Where did you get that from? Wajib means that you have proof and evidence from the Quran, Sunnah, that this is what Allah has ordained or mandated, and there's no proof for that. You can say it's beneficial. You can say that, that's fine. You don't need proof for that. Okay, because that's what you call it a political issue. Is it beneficial? Is there benefit? Yeah, sure there is. So it's beneficial. You can't say it's necessary. And more than that, they say it is wajib for you to vote for Bush. Which is the most moronic thing I've ever heard. That was in the first election. In the second election, they said it's haram for you to vote for Bush. Well, make up your minds. Well, what is it? Which one is it? This one or this one? So if you attach Islam to any value, you need proof, which is a huge bid'ah in our community. The khatibs, they go just an idiotic way. So this wajib, this haram. How are you saying that? Allah's going to ask you on the Day of Judgment, where is your proof that this is wajib or this is haram? So be careful. Can you engage? Yes, it is halal. Should you engage? Yes, because it's going to benefit you. Should it be organized? Yes. Should it be coordinated? Yes. Should we have our leaders? Yes. Is it haram? No. Either way, you have to be careful if you want to make this into an Islamic discussion rather than a Muslim discussion. You can make it a Muslim discussion by all means. And you can say that people who don't vote, they are not representing the community and then they're doing the country a disservice by not voting. You can say that. That's fine. Whether that's true or not is subject to debate also. And you can debate that too. So we do have to be careful when we claim something is Islamic. And the ulama are very wary. They won't say anything's haram or anything is wajib until they have evidence. It's based on evidence. It's not based on their thinking and their opinion. It's not based on their aql. It's based on what we call nas, scriptural proof. If you don't have scriptural proof, you can't say anything. The ulama will never say that. And they haven't said that. They're very careful so that they don't commit a sin by saying something that's not true. And that is how the academics of Islam work. This is how we work in Darul Iftā here, the house of fatwa. They won't make a comment about anything halal or haram until there is now evidence, and that evidence is written. And that evidence is documented. Okay. So I think the way we want to approach engagement with social services and political services is that we have to be, we can say we can be utilitarian about it. Is there utility in this? So you can debate that. Yeah, there is some utility, and you go back and forth as they discuss when they're making a law and they want to pass a bill. They discuss the utility, the pros and cons of that bill, and so this is good. So that's the utilitarian approach, which is fine. You can do that in your community too, and discuss amongst yourself what is the worldly secular value of engaging or not engaging. That's the first thing. Secondly, what are the parameters of political engagement for the candidate? So if there's a candidate there who's not running for elections, what should he or should he not do in terms of that? So obviously he has to make sure he's not promoting anything haram. He's not conceding something that's haram for the sake of political expediency. That doesn't work. You can't do that. There you have to maintain what is now proven. You cannot subscribe to the gay movement simply because you want more Muslims to vote in the hope that when we have Muslims on our side, we'll be able to do what we want to do in the country. That's never going to work. Good luck with that. It's never going to work. So there they have to be truthful to the deen. So they can't go around expressing their, ideas and say that this is what Muslims should do because it is better and expedient. And so there they have to be careful. If they do that, then it is a sin for them. And we should warn them of the consequence of this. Okay? One guy ran here in Illinois, and obviously he conceded to that cause, and then obviously he lost dreadfully because nobody voted for him. And he was hoping that if I concede, people will vote. No, people are not stupid. Muslims are very Muslim when it comes to these moral issues. They're very loyal to what Islam stands for. They're not going to change their views because they hope you can get into a position and then you'll change and influence the system. That doesn't work. So anybody who's a candidate must make sure that they do not subscribe to sin and they don't promote anything that is un-Islamic or anti-Islamic and so on. That's that. And obviously the other thing is that dhulm, that they must not concede to oppression and injustice in any way, shape or form. These are the broad parameters. I'm not talking about those specifically. So if there's somebody who says that I'm okay with Israel doing what it does, you say, no. We won't accept you if you say that. Just because everybody else is jumping onto the bandwagon. The other thing with the political organization is kind of, guided, dictated by the ticket, what do you call it? You have to toe the line of the party. If you don't toe the line of the party, then you won't be a representative of that party. They'll just kick you out. So how do you negotiate that? Okay, so that is an area where I think they need to find a way to make sure they can speak against some of the party policies and still remain part of the party, which some, US candidates, they do. They do it very well. Bernie Sanders, as you know, is always going against the grain. And they haven't kicked him out yet, the Democrats. Okay, there are other senators who also sometimes go rogue and they say, well, I don't agree with this policy, although it's the party line. So they won't go with the party line. Are you strong enough to do that? If you're strong enough to do that, Bismillah. But if you're not strong enough to do that and you're always conceding to the party line, then you're not really a politician. Okay, you'll be expedient and you're an opportunist and you're looking for name, fame, game, and glory. Basically, that's not the right candidate for Muslims, at least. So, is there a need for Muslims to participate? Yes, there is, but from the utilitarian point of view. Not from the Islamic point of view, meaning if no one participates, will the community be held responsible? Will it be a fard kifaya? You say, no, we don't have proof of that. Until we have proof of that, we're not going to make that statement. And we're not going to go around and allowing you to, come to the minbar and say these things. We won't allow you to do that. You're not doing that. Okay? So you need proof to make something Islamically wajib or Islamically haram. And so on. There are other things we can do. Local politics, definitely. We should engage in local politics and become, local mayor or, maybe a board member in the local schools or do something that's going to help and benefit the local community, because we can definitely engage in civic engagement with local communities. And we should do that as much. That's where the real power in the country is local politics. So definitely we need people to step up and do things, again, from the strictly utilitarian point of view, not with a chip on our shoulder and say, we're doing this for the Muslim Ummah. And don't worry about that. You're not responsible for the Ummah, trust me. Other people are responsible for the Ummah. You do what you need to do in terms of ma'ruf, in joining the good, that I'm going to get this ordinance passed in the village because it's going to help people. Not just Muslims, because what's good for Muslims is good for people, right? So you have to broaden that problem. So, okay, this is good in general for the whole community. So I'm going to make sure it passes. Or this is bad for the community. I'm going to make sure it doesn't pass. So you should do that from a very kind of human perspective rather than a simply Muslim perspective. And that's where your power is going to be. I mean, we had this experience in Britain. In Britain, it was a kind of very organic way. They didn't care too much, the Muslims who did engage at the community level, at the local level, at the state level, even at the national level. They weren't too concerned about Islam. The Muslim politicians, I'm saying. They really didn't care. They were just in it for the community, for the Asian kind of minority blanket. This is not good for the Asian. So what's good for the Asian is that they can save money, they can get free money from the government, they can get grants, and they can do this and that for the the schools, and for other policies that they can control and become governors of a school and dictate how the school should be run. But they weren't doing it because they wanted to create a khilafah. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't have this chip on their shoulder. But they did it, and they were very successful. So now we have hundreds, if not thousands, of Muslims in key areas of local government where they run the whole country. And they can swing a election. Yeah. Recently, there are members of the Labour Party who resigned from the Labour Party because the Labour Party was pro-Israel. And they all resigned from their constituents. And they told the Labour Party that we will no longer vote for you anywhere at all. So Labour lost thousands of voters, to the extent where now they're saying that they have already swung the vote in the favor of conservatives. But you can do that if you have local power, not necessarily national power. We in this country have this hallucination of being in the White House for some reason. Fantasize, let's have a Muslim in the White House. What the heck is a Muslim going to do in the White House? He's going to run the same foreign policy as Bush and Obama did. That's never going to change. But that's etched in stone until the day of judgment. Their foreign policy will never change. It doesn't matter how many Muslims come to the White House. So we have to get over this idea that we're voting for a foreign policy change. Why don't you vote for what's beneficial for you in the domestic policy, which is where you live? You don't live elsewhere, you live here. So if someone's going to make a change, it has to be in your own constituent that they're going to make a change what is good for you and good for the people around you, and so on. So I'm saying that I'm taking, I'm not subscribing to the lack of an Islamic identity that the Brits have. Okay. We disagree with that. You should have some Islamic concern when you have that kind of power. You should have a Muslim agenda somewhere, but they don't have it. They're just very secular about the whole thing. Here in this country, we all seem to have a chip on our shoulder. Everything must have an Islamic label. That's not right. You don't want to justify everything. I'm putting gas in my tank. What is the Islamic rule? Baba, you need the car to run. That's your Islamic label. Right? So likewise, you need the government to work for you. That is your Islamic label. Does your local government work for you? Does your local government reduce your real estate taxes? Does your local government do enough for the public schools? Does your local government charge you in exorbitant rates on your water bill? That's what you should be thinking about, not whether the foreign policy is going to change or not. That's almost maniacal. Right? It doesn't work. Politics doesn't work that way in terms of idealism. You can make an academic statement and the levels of engagement and so on. But what I'm trying to present to you is that let's be sensible about the whole thing, and let's be, mashallah, relaxed about the whole thing also, and let's do things as genuine, bona fide US citizens, instead of feeling like second-class citizens where we're marginalized and we think our opinions have no value. If you go to a local town hall meeting, they will listen to you. They're not going to shut you out. How do you think this mayor of Glendale Heights became a mayor? Huh? You guys don't know the story. I'm not going to tell you the story either. He became mayor because people listened to him. So the idea that people don't listen to you because you're brown or because you have a different origin or ethnic, that is all false. They will elect you and select you based on your merit and your aggression and based on your conviction that you can help Glendale Heights. They're not concerned about whether you like foreign policy or not. They're not going to judge you on that. Okay? So we have to be careful that we don't over-idealize and kind of exaggerate what we're not supposed to exaggerate in the first place. So we must be very sensible and very street smart about the whole idea of where we engage and where we don't engage. There was a congressman who came to the Islamic Foundation many, many years ago, maybe 15, 20 years. I was the imam for the Eid khutbah. And this guy who comes after me, he talks after the Eid Salat, saying that how come we don't see any Muslims in local politics? And that's very un-American. We see Muslims outside the White House. And he told everybody, so you should be engaged in local politics. What you can do for your local community, rather than just shout about foreign policy, foreign policy. It's going to fall on deaf ears. The White House doesn't care what your idea of foreign policy is. They have demonstrations and they have marches. They had 1 million people marching in London against Israel. Is that going to make a difference to their policy? No. 1 million Brits coming to the aid of Palestine. Can you imagine that? That's never happened in history. But does it make a difference to the Prime Minister? He said, that's your democratic right to protest. Right? He said, that's your democratic right to protest. What else is he going to say? And what else is he going to do? He's not going to change the policy because people are doing this. So I'm saying that we have to be very realistic and understand how the game works. And the game doesn't work at the macro level, the game works at the micro level. So this congressman who came in the foundation after Eid, and he tells everybody in the audience, nobody comes to us about domestic issues, everybody comes to us about foreign policy. And he said to everybody, this is so un-American. It's just so un-American. America doesn't work that way. So we have to tell our leaders to stop it. Sit down and be quiet. Tell people to be engaged where there is benefit and there is immediate change and immediate impact. But you're not willing to do that because you have to sacrifice your Sunday morning breakfast and your brunch because you'll be called into now meetings at odd times. And if you're not there, you say, I can't do that. I have a dawat. I have a birthday party to go to. I have a qiqah party to go to. I have this engagement, that engagement. You say, my wife will kill me if I'm not there. You say, well, then, brother, you can't engage in politics if you don't have the spirit of volunteerism. This country is built on volunteerism. It's not built on name and game and reputation. Just because you want a name and you want a position, you have to volunteer. You have to get your hands dirty. Are you willing to do that? If the answer is no, then don't engage and don't even talk about it. So that's the name of the game. That you have to get your hands dirty. You have to do public service. You have to show people that you care for the community, which is known as ma'roof. Do you care for the community? Are you going to do something to limit drugs in your local community? Or prostitution in your local community? Or are you going to do something about the school system and the school taxes? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to put your neck out for the ma'roof, which is low-hanging fruit, instead of the high ideals, which you know you'll never reach? So the name of the game is that follow the American system of politics. Understand how this system works. And then keep your Islamic idealism to the side. Right? Unless we can figure that out and be honest with ourselves and say, yes, we must do this because that's the way many communities work. I mean, you see this, as I said, Britain is a great example. Australia is another example where they do the groundwork and they do a lot of groundwork and kind of, grassroots efforts there. South Africa is another example where they do grassroots efforts and they take care of the local community first, along with speaking against dhulm and injustice and along with demonstrating that we're anti-Israel and all of that. At the same time, We must be concerned about our local neighborhood and our local community. But if we're not, then we're just shouting for no reason. And so on. So that is how we must approach it. So engagement, yes, definitely. Muslims as citizens of this country, it is very beneficial if we engage at community levels, social levels, whichever political level. We should not shy away from that, and we must not assume we're second-class citizens or we're guests in this country. We should assume that we are here to stay, and we want to make this country better. It's my country. I want to make it better. As Trump says, make it great. But you should have that in you. That, yeah, I want to make this country great. It's the best place on earth for me to live. Well, that's why I'm not in another country. If I didn't like this country, why would I be here? Because you love this country, you're here. You never move to any other country on the planet. Right? You can speak volumes of everything else, but the proof's in the pudding. You're here. So do what you can to, impact your local community, and at the same time help Muslims understand that they must now, get off this bandwagon of making everything Islamic, and stop looking for an Islamic label in everything that you do. You do things organically because that's how Allah wants you to work, and Allah wants you to engage. The Sahaba, they just did things organically. They didn't stop and think, okay, what is the Islamic value of this? They did things because the Prophet ﷺ said they should do this. And the Prophet ﷺ did what he did because that's the way he was, or that's the way he is. And that's how we should also be, that we should be proactive, have a positive mindset, and engage as much as we can, wherever we can, to make a difference. And there are people in the community who want to be mayors of local communities. That is great. Yeah. Many people come to me and say, Shaykh, I want to be a mayor of this country. Yes, Bismillah, go ahead. Be my guest. I'll vote for you. So you don't discourage people who want to be actively involved. You don't say it's haram. No, there's benefit in you, whether you're Muslim. I'm sure you'll bring some ma'ruf into the discussion somewhere. It's going to help some Muslims. And also the community must also realize that Muslims have a lot to offer. Muslims have so many values to offer. Muslims have their deen to offer. There's just so much khair in the Muslim. If only Muslims took the opportunity to avail the opportunities we have in this country. No one's going to stop you from doing what you do organically. I'm saying. Just very spontaneously, very naturally. This is how we do things, right? Yeah. So if you're talking about wasting energy and not conserving energy, it's a very normal conversation that we don't do this. Our Prophet told us that we don't waste water when we make wudu. Such an organic idea, such a normal, natural idea. So why are you wasting? You have to conserve energy. He said, but this country is not based on conserving; it's based on wasting, as we all know, and so on. But I mean, there are so many areas that are so wide open, and we really don't need to be confused or annoyed about anything. What can we do about Israel? We can make dua. We can ask Allah to help, and if anybody has the energy, ability to go there and actually help, they should do so. But other than that, there's not much you can do realistically. You have to come to terms with reality. That realistic, not much we can do, even as a community, unless you have such a lobby, right? Power, unless you do such a mass level of boycott, where it actually impacts the Israeli economy. Having a few Starbucks close, it's a win. It's a moral win. It's not even pennies for the Israelis. Be realistic about it. It does help. Definitely, we should boycott every business that is pro-Israel. There's no doubt in that. I mean, that's fine. But the expectations can't be that high that somehow is going to change things on the ground. Nothing on the ground is changing until Allah's will comes, obviously. At the same time, we have power and we have, a strategy. How much, buying power does the Muslim community have in this country? What's our buying power? Huh? $1 billion. That's it? I was hoping, maybe 300 billion. We have a lot of buying power in this country, and if we all got together, coordinated an effort for economic kind of boycotting, I think we'll be very successful. But we don't coordinate and we don't organize. We don't necessarily think at that level. But anyway, what I'm saying is that there are ways to be more active, and if people have ideas, they should come and share their ideas with people. There's no harm in you discussing amongst yourselves. You should exchange ideas and not be shy. Sometimes your ideas will not be always accepted by other people. That's fine. That's called diversity. And you should exchange ideas all the time so that you benefit from each other and so on. So yeah, the idea of engagement is that we are already engaged at a certain level, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. That's organic. We're already engaged. You're here, you're engaged, period. Don't be holier than thou. No, I'm not American. Brother, you're more American than you know. You're in denial. Okay, you need to see a shrink. Of course you're American. That's who you are. That's why you live here. And the second thing is that we should be a bit less, I think, eager to talk about foreign policy. Is the US foreign policy wrong? Yes, dead wrong. It is dhulm, it is injustice. But what can we realistically do about it? If there's a way, and if people have strategies and ways to do it, then bismillah, do it. Appoint your senators and your congressmen and your representatives the way the system works. And if you can't do that, then you have to try something else which is available to you. What's available to you is that you can write to your local newspapers, you can talk about it, and you can have op-eds, and you can do this and that, and just promote your ideas the way you can in this country. And there are many opportunities for you to promote your ideas. Form a syndicate, and then write through the syndicate about issues in your local papers, in the Daily Herald, where people read the Daily Herald. There's a lot of power in writing for local newspapers, a lot of power. If you write for the Sun Times, it goes everywhere in Chicago. If you write for the Tribune, it goes everywhere. So I don't think you should underestimate the power of writing in the outlets that are immediately available to us. And we should write everything, whatever it is. Right? So there's no harm in expressing your opinion legally where we can express our opinions. Inshallah, use those outlets. So donation obviously helps, sadaqah usually helps, dua definitely helps. It's part of our civilizational values. The Prophet ﷺ would always resort to dua whenever there was a crisis. That's the sunnah, and we should follow the sunnah because there's barakah, nur in the sunnah, and so on. So these are ways that we should engage, definitely. But we can't shy away from engaging because this is a non-Muslim country. I mean, you should be more engaged in a non-Muslim country than in a Muslim countries to make the country better and to add value to the system. A Muslim is always going to be thinking of adding value to any system that he enjoys and he lives in and lives with. So that's how we should think. Be very proactive and again, make dua. Allah give us all nur and hidayah and tawfiq, inshallah. So I wanted this also to be not really a monolithic kind of, what do you call it, monologue. I want to be some engagement. So you can ask questions. We have a few minutes for questions if you want to engage. So go ahead. Yes.
So if we know someone in our local community is running for office, but they may not sort of be clued into like and stuff, what sort of things? What sort of advice should we give to people who are running for office in our communities?
That they should follow the Muslim ethics. Yeah, be honest and have integrity and do what's best for mainstream. No doubt. He doesn't have to necessarily do what's best for Muslim interests. Meaning that if he has to understand ma'ruf as being a common good for all human beings. So he must address those issues primarily and focus on that. Am I good for the Muslim community? Hopefully. Because if you're good for the non-Muslim community, you're good for the Muslim community. Yeah, it's a matter of perspective.
On the political front, sometimes there's a question about, you started off by talking about the country being a non-Muslim land, and you have a constitution that separates church and state. So within that separation, is there any room for a candidate to take a position that says, my religion, I'm open about it, my religion says X or Y on a particular issue of abortion, for example, or an issue of gay rights. However, the party that I'm affiliated with has a view on the constitutional side or on the secular front that's different than my religion. It's kind of schizophrenic to try to marry the two together, but is there any room within what you're talking about for that kind of thinking?
It's always a dilemma, as I said, for candidates to emphasize the US Constitution, because that's how you're going to be elected. If you're against the Constitution, nobody will listen to you. So that's definitely a game changer. But you have to be able to couch, the controversial issues as a universal sin or universal evil. You must have enough ability in you to debate that this is wrong for humanity. And that's where you come from. Munkar is something that everybody dislikes and everybody rejects. So you must find a way, either through utilitarian premises or usuli premises for that matter, and convince people that this lifestyle is not good for anybody. And it's based on the US Constitution that we have the right to say and debate and discuss. So it's not necessarily just an Islamic issue, it's a universal issue. And that's what we hopefully will train people to do and say that, our civilizational values are good because they're good for everybody. So if Islam has prohibited something, there must be, for the lack of a better word, a secular application of that in terms of convincing people through debate and articulation, stats, for instance. People who discuss abortion, they usually have a lot of stats, and they say it's just universally wrong, and that you are killing people left, right, and center, and all on. So I think there are other ways, and other parties and groups, they also make such claims. So I don't think we're isolated as a religious group to be against gays. Half the country, most of the Republicans are against gays. So we're not being un-American if we say that. So we need to understand how that works. Why do they say they're anti-gay when they're non-Muslim? They don't have an Islamic angle. They have another angle. So what's their angle? So we need to do our homework and not assume that we're always marginalized because we have an Islamic opinion. That's not really the case. The Catholics, for instance, they have their own write-up on these issues. And I mean, they have a tremendous write-up on abortion, which they justify rationally in so many different ways. The Pope has his own position on that, but they articulate it in very mundane and secular terms, which Muslim politicians, they need to read. Our politicians, they don't read, which is obviously a danger. They need to be educated just a little bit more rather than go with the flow and say, well, everybody says gays are wrong and they have no right to say that because the Constitution allows it. I mean, does the Constitution allow it? That'd be the bigger question. So anyway, what I'm saying is that if they do their homework, they should be able to, debate. Because the as you know, in law school, you're always debating. Lawyers always debate, so they can make everything wrong right. That's how you earn your money, brother. Right? So likewise, we can make this wrong very right, and we can make this right very wrong. It's all in articulation. The power of debate is the highest level of knowledge Allah gives to the Nabi. Basically, every Nabi has the power to debate, to convince people in their terms, in mundane terms, why kufr is wrong and where their lifestyle is wrong. And so we have the precedents in the Quran through Lut alayhi salam, and maybe read what he says in the Quran about why that lifestyle is wrong. And so we have to do a lot of homework. Yeah.
Well, the Republicans don't like us, so we're going to run on a Democratic angle, but we can't be anti-gay and anti this and that. So I think that's the conundrum for the politicians that run. They're sort of stuck in this two-party system, and you don't fit one way or the other. So I think what you're saying is, if you have to be true to your values, there's no carve out that you could have for your religious values being personal, and you're going to express those, but you can't separate that from the party, platform, which stands for certain rights that you can't endorse. So it's very difficult in my mind then that you could sit on a democratic platform under that premise.
Anybody else want to chip in?
Grassroots and hard work and time. They built these platforms over decades.
They've built these platforms over decades, maybe even centuries. You have to do the hard work. He's saying that you have to go grassroots and campaign one way or the other. No.
But I think you definitely have examples from each party of politicians who actually will take positions that are not in line. So Hillary Clinton's vice presidential candidate, Tim Kaine, a faithful Catholic, articulated, I thought, very well his position on abortion. So what he basically said was, personally, I'm against abortion, morally, as a practicing Catholic, and I will support policies that will reverse that, but at the same time, as long as it's the law of the land, I will follow that law of the land. So he was true to his values in articulating that. And I think that's where Muslim politicians fall flat. To be very honest, I don't think they realize their own values, and that leading with those values might actually increase their political attractiveness. I think we're at a dire loss for candidates that have integrity. And I really think non-Muslims would be attracted to a person who actually can articulate that. But I do think there are examples in the current political climate of people who are true to their values on both sides. They're in the very small minority, and that minority is getting smaller, but I actually think that's a space that Muslims could actually be very effective.
Anyone else?
I have a slightly different question. I mean, besides political engagement, if you look at professional engagement in kind of our day-to-day lives as we are as students, as professionals, we engage with a lot of non-Muslims around us. And especially in a context, my question is specifically that in the context where you have people from other faiths who are working with you, who have different set of values, and they are expecting some sort of an endorsement or a support for their values, whether it's like gay rights and other things which are very kind of become very mainstream in the corporate world. How do you kind of handle those as leaders?
As leaders?
Yeah, what is your stand, right? If you're part of a professional leadership group and you have, as a corporation, a lot of advocacy for some of these rights and values that are counter to our Islamic values. Exactly. If you're a kind of a senior executive in a business.
Okay, that's a good question. Well, that was one area I didn't touch on. The other area of engagement is your own profession. At work, many Muslims now are marginalized because of their position against Israel. Some unfortunate Muslims, they've been fired for speaking out, which is kind of very hypocritical and so on. But to answer your question, that if you're in a position of leadership in a corporation, then Do you have a responsibility to voice your true opinion? You do. But that's up to you how you want to hedge it. But you should speak what you think is the truth. I don't think you can shy away from speaking the truth. It's a question of being brave. You might lose your job. Yeah, so your wife probably won't like you, but there you go. But you do have a responsibility. You should say what you need to say. Maintain the peace. Be very cordial about it. You don't have to be uncouth when you say that. Be very polite, cordial within the boundaries of normal behavior and so on. But you should express yourself. I think that Allah will then help you because you've expressed yourself truly and truthfully without feeling discomfort. I mean, and obviously then, God forbid, I'm sure there are HR rules that apply. So yeah, so I don't know. It depends on also company policy. So if HR has a policy in the company that you can't say this and you can't say that, then I would suggest you follow that policy, unless you really want to lose your job. But as far as speaking the truth, I don't think you should shy away from speaking the truth. You should say whatever you need to say, and Allah will definitely help you, inshallah. Bi-idhnillah.
Maulana, just as Darul Qasim has a ulama development forum, is there some interest in having this institution develop local community leaders that can go out and do the things that you had mentioned? Perhaps making this the institution where we're educating people on how our civilizational values should be brought out and applied in the ways that you had mentioned.
Yeah, there's always an ideal in the minds of many people that we should have leadership training, which is okay. I guess. We want to develop the ability for Muslims to follow the Sunnah, not to lead. So they need a lot of tarbiyah. They need their nafs checked. So a lot of nafs training is needed, because the Prophet ﷺ said, anyone seeks leadership, don't give it to him. That's the Sunnah, right? So you're going out there campaigning, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. What is our mandate? You say, I'm not going to vote for you because you're asking for leadership. That'll be the training we give. All right, you have to follow the Sunnah. So you need people to be able to follow the Sunnah rather than lead the Sunnah. Don't second guess Islamic values and principles. Don't second guess the Prophet ﷺ. Can you still be a leader by following? Yeah, sure you can. But that comes on the back of tremendous effort, sacrifice, that you get your hands dirty, you do the work the community wants you to do. You show that you're willing to work for the community. The proof's in the pudding, man. And I'm not sure most of these people who are running for office, I don't think they have any idea as to what khidmah is. They have no sense of service. Okay? Will they ever go to a masjid and vacuum the floor? That might be the first, I think, prerequisite of anyone who wants to be a leader. Are you willing to do something for the masjid? Are you willing to now do something for the people? Are you willing to hand out food to the people who need food? Can you show people that you're khadim, that you're a servant, rather than a makhdum, someone who's been served? Yeah? So I think leadership is all academic, in my opinion. You're boosting the ego and you're preparing the nafs for failure if you say, I want a leadership school. So that can be changed and converted to training people how to follow. You must be followers first. This ummah is built on following, not on leading. The Sahaba, they're called Sahaba because of the Suhbah. The Tabi'een, what does that mean? What does Tabi'een mean? Followers. We didn't call them leaders, but they became leaders by default. Because organically they became leaders because of their service. So people who want to do service, they will do service regardless of leadership. Now, that might not work if you want to build a university, which we do, and obviously eventually we'll have leadership colleges and a war college, something like that, a jihad college. which we will. I don't think you should laugh about it. It's a very serious subject. We should have a war college. I mean, the US has a war college, right? Why do they have a war college? Why was West Point created in the first place? It is part of civilization. It is part of the organization of an ummah. It needs to have a war college so that they discuss warfare, strategies, and develop cadets, train them into becoming very well educated cadets and who have degrees and they're sophisticated, they know how the world works and so on. So I don't think we can shy away from that at the academic level. But at the social level, I'll be very wary to have a leadership school. As everybody in high school wants, we want our children to be leaders. Okay. Which one of the school policies have they not broken? You want to create leaders from these idiots? That ain't happening. Train them to be disciplined and organized. That's when you get leadership. If they can't be trained, then there's no leadership there. So I think you have to get the ingredients right first. What are the ingredients from which you are going to train leaders? So you don't have those raw material. All your raw material, they're kind of deficient. There's nothing there in the raw material that says we can make a good product from these raw materials, I think. And that's the case with many Muslim countries because every leader is corrupt. Really? You want to give them training how to be leaders? They have to train them first on their nafs and say, be honest and don't lie and don't cheat and don't deceive. Then you can be eventually some kind of leader. But if you don't have the raw ingredients as refined and reformed with tazkiyah and tarbiyah, then you're kind of fantasizing. The idea sounds good, leadership, but it doesn't really exist in our communities. I don't see any community saying that we can actually create leaders. The only place where that can happen is a madrasa, where you're training students to follow the teacher in their academics. That's what they do. So when the teacher comes in the classroom, the teacher's always right, even if the student's right. We teach them that discipline, that you have to acquiesce to the teacher. That's our civilization. The teacher's always right, and you just or you could concede. You don't argue, and you don't make a noise and fuss over that. Even if, as I said, even if the student might be right temporarily, but he's wrong in the whole construct of the thing. So that is where adab is taught. You need to teach people adab and mannerism, how to follow. So I think madrasa is the best place where you want to, inshallah, headhunt leaders. But that will only come in the student who knows how to follow the administration, how to follow the teachers, how to follow the culture, how to follow the sunnah. So it's in following that we find our leadership, not in leading. All right? And the key is the word tabi. All our great leaders came from the tabi'in, and the tabi'in, see, the genius of the Muslim ummah was in their wording. Just super genius, how they chose the word tabi'i. And they were all imams. Abu Hanifa was a tabi'i. He was a leader. But we say he's a tabi'i, he's a follower. At the same time, he knew how to follow the Sahaba. He knew how to follow the Rasul. He knew how to follow the Quran and Sunnah. He knew how to follow Islam. All right? Yeah, so your key word will be tabi. That in our civilization, we honor the tabi'in so highly that they're almost like the Sahaba. If you can get to that level of knowledge and adab, then you're looking at something very useful, inshallah. But other than that, kind of promoting people's egos by saying, I'm going to make you a leader. Well, no, thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? So, Jazakumullah khair. Hopefully this is a useful session. Take care of yourselves and engage as much as you can. and make dua for the rest of the ummah. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillah.